Hello, I'm John Suggett, and today I'd like to show you an easy way of drawing figures and then introducing them to a watercolour background to make a finished picture. And we'll do it by drawing carrots. But first, we'll start by preparing the watercolour background. I'm using watercolour paper today. I don't like to use thinner stuff, this printer type paper, because it's too thin. And when you use it, it buckles and coggles when you put paint onto it. So I'm using watercolour paper. There's the sheet. Some people like to use the pad and work direct there. I prefer to tape my paper down using masking tape. And here we have it. I'll just show you how I'll use it to tape it down. By doing this as well, you get a nice border when you come to take the masking paper away from the finished piece. I try and keep it the same size border all around, but inevitably I don't. There we go. Now my paper's prepared and I'm going to paint a watercolour wash on it, and for this I'll only use four colours today. I'll use lemon yellow, yellow ochre, ultramarine blue and light red. If you haven't got light red, burnt sienna will do. So I like a slight slope when I'm working the paint, and it stops the water from pooling. So here we go. I'm going to cover the whole paper with clean water, and then I'm going to go into some paint work. And I'm going to work quickly because the background wash isn't the important part of the picture. The carrots, the figures are, and we'll come to those shortly. So here we go. Clear water to cover the whole of the paper. And you've got to have a look sideways and whatever to see if you've covered all the bits, because you want the paint to spread nicely. Right. Okay. So I'm using a bit of lemon yellow because I like that in there. Bit of yellow ochre, just adds a little bit, and I'm going to do and I'm doing the sky and the ground at the same time. You only allow yourself a couple of minutes to do this. This is ultramarine blue, the sky, some of that down here. You can see I'm not being particular about how it works out. I'll explain a little bit more in a moment about this. I've got an idea in my head what I want to do, and I'm going to introduce a little bit of light red to the ultramarine blue, and I'm going to introduce some clouds, just a hint of clouds here and there, and I'm going to give a little hint of some buildings back here. Notice I'm working quickly and I'm not niggling at it. You'll get your own idea of what sort of thing, and maybe a tree or two coming down here. Just a hint of them coming down there. And this down at the bottom, the ground, still using the same sort of mix. And you can give a feeling of flatness to the ground or unevenness, it's up to you. and I allow myself about 2 minutes to do the sky, and today the foreground, and that's it. That's all you need to do for your watercolour background. We're going to set this to one side to dry, and then we'll get on to the really important bit, and that's drawing carrots. So anybody can draw a carrot. Let's draw a carrot. I'm using a really dark pencil. Sometimes I use a charcoal pencil to do this, and I'm going to shade it in so it's good for the camera to look dark. There's a carrot, no problem at all. And if we put a blob on the top, this carrot's got a head, and we can give it a couple of arms. Simple as anything. If we want, we can show this carrot's wearing a jacket or something like that. Just that simple. And now we've got a carrot. Let's draw another carrot. There can be different sizes because carrots are different sizes. Somebody told me once that you can tell whether it's a male or a female because in a female the head joins the carrot's body, and in the male the head doesn't join, because we all know that men's heads don't exactly attach to their bodies very well. Anyway, that's by the by. Let's say that this is a female carrot because the head's joining, and she's been shopping. There you go. So you've turned your carrot into a lady who's been shopping. Let's draw another carrot. I like drawing carrots. You might say, why hasn't it got 2 legs? But mostly, when you're drawing figures and they're walking, as there might be in your picture, you don't actually see the 2 legs. You quite often only see 1 leg, because 1 leg is behind the other. Okay. There's the head, this carrot. Let's see. He's got a hand in his pocket. And he's carrying a briefcase. And well. Another carrot. I'm putting his head further down because this carrot is a little bit bothered. Here's his arm, it's going into his pocket, and here's his other arm, it's going into his pocket. He called into the pub, you know, on the way home from work, and he's a bit worried about the reception he's going to get. This carrot's his wife. I'll give her a skirt. Don't have to, but I'll give her a skirt anyway. She's saying, what time do you think this is then? Okay. Another carrot. I've got loads of them. You'll have loads of them when you practice. You can give your carrot hair, you know, just by a little bit of movement like that. She's carrying a bag. But what do you think this carrot will be? Well, you know it's a smaller carrot because it's smaller. Don't make the head on a small carrot too small, because heads, as we know, grow slower than any other part of our body. Big mistake. People draw the heads on little carrots too small. So keep them a decent size. Okay, I'm going to draw a carrot from sideways on. You say, is it any different? No, doesn't have to be. But I'm going to put the head a little bit to the side like that. This is an older carrot. I've given him a walking stick because he's a bit hunched. I'm just going to do 2 more carrots for the time being. I've drawn the head first. That was a mistake. I usually draw the bodies. Doesn't matter. These carrots are standing facing each other. You notice they're men because their heads aren't joining the bodies. This one's a bit misshapen, but that's okay. We don't mind. And this carrot is saying, I told you to turn right to the gleaners. And this carrot is saying, I thought you said turn right to the cleaners. Right, now we're going to try and introduce our carrots into a scene. So try and put your mind into a scene and try to, now that you've practiced a lot of the carrots, I hope you've tried a lot of the carrots, then you're going to introduce those into a scene. And I'm just using any sort of paper. The thin printer paper will do, any sort of paper. And I'm going to draw a horizon line on the paper. I'll explain the significance of it in a while. I draw a horizon line about 1/3 of the way down, put a dot. Same on the other side, put a dot, and then join the 2 dots. And the horizon line is, as I'm the viewer from here, that's my eye line. So all the heads of the carrots that I'm going to introduce should be pretty well on a level with that horizon line, unless they're sitting down or lying down, or unless it's a little carrot and the head will be lower than that. So I'm going to use one of my carrots and introduce it into what will turn out to be my scene. So you'll probably recognise that this is one of the carrots that I did earlier, and I've forgotten a head, but there's a head, and I'm going to give her a bit of a head shape like that, and she's carrying a couple of bags. I'm going to put other figures on at different places, but I'll put a couple on just to show you. The size of the carrot determines to our eyes how far away the carrots are from us. So the closer they are to us, the bigger the carrot should be. The further away they are, the smaller the carrot should be. So I'll do one that's a bit smaller, and I'll put the head in first because that locates it. See, close to the horizon line. There's a carrot. See, finishes much shorter, and it suggests to our heads that it's further away. This carrot is on the phone. There it goes. This carrot, she's on the way with her shopping. You don't need to shade them in, it's up to you. And I'll do a couple more. She's got a bag in one hand and a baby carrot in the other hand. I don't know what that is. Baby carrot's carrying something perhaps. I'm going to let her hair come down to the side like that because I can, because it's up to me and it's up to you. So you plan your scene and you develop your scene, and this is my scene that I've decided to plan out and I'm going to introduce to my watercolour background in a moment or two. Right, okay, so here we are back again, and the watercolour background, which I prepared earlier, has dried, and it's important that we have a horizon line again so we can locate our heads in the finished picture. So you probably remember, measure about a third of the way down, pardon my laughing, about a third of the way down, a couple little dots, and draw your line, your horizon line, faintly, because you don't want it to show badly. There's no reason why it shouldn't show, because it proves it's an original piece of art if you show it. But draw it faintly across so that you can see it. Nobody else needs to see it. So there you go, the horizon line's prepared, the background's done. All we need now is to introduce our carrots into the scene that we've prepared earlier. So by the magic of video, here we are with the scene that I want to paint already prepared. And I'm going now to show you how to set about colouring these carrot people simply. For this, I'm only going to use 3 colours: cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, and light red. And if you haven't got light red, burnt sienna will do. Now, the further away the people are, that's the smaller they are, don't forget, the lighter blue I'll paint them, because lighter colours tend to recess as we look at them. So I'm going to use cobalt blue to start with, and I'm going to paint all of the carrots with a layer of thin cobalt blue. It doesn't matter where you start. And how quickly you work. I don't know why I started at the right hand side, but I did. I usually start at the left. You'll probably notice, because I prepared this earlier, that the background's somewhat darker. But then, you're never going to paint, well, I never paint the same picture twice, even though I'm trying to sometimes. This is cobalt blue, and I'm just intent on giving all these carrot figures a coating of cobalt blue. And it doesn't matter if it's perfectly the same. In fact, it's probably better that it doesn't. Here these guys, can you remember them? I think I've given them a cap this time. Yeah, they've both got caps, flat caps. And the side on so I can show their feet. This one's reminding me, I told you to turn right at the gleaners. And this guy says, I thought you said the cleaners. They're a bit nearer, but they're getting the same cobalt blue light wash. And you may be saying, well, don't show up very well. Yeah, you're right, but they will. You see, you can add a prop, walking stick, walking frame. Now, because the background's a bit darker, I'm going to go back. This figure's where I started, and I'm going to give it another coat of cobalt blue, and you can see how it immediately lifts the figure a little bit more. And if the colour's not exactly the same, I'm happy about that. But your carrots are going to become people in a landscape. simply and easily, and you don't have to put expressions on their faces at this stage, because you're just learning a process of putting figures in a landscape. And you'll be surprised at how many people, how many pictures I look at, landscapes, and there's not a solitary soul in the picture. And my theory, I don't know whether this is true or not, but my theory is, you know, people are not confident in drawing figures, so they don't put them in. So nobody can criticize their carrots, their figures. It's just a theory. But once people start finding the secret of the carrots and practicing, you'll be surprised how confident they can become at putting figures in their pictures. So instead of having barren landscapes, you can look and you'll see the odd carrot walking along in the background. Now, they all look much the same at the moment because cobalt blue is what I've used. So yeah, you've guessed it. I'm going to go into ultramarine. I'm going to leave this figure and these figures cobalt blue, light. But they're away in the background, you see. I don't want them to show up too much. But I'm going to go into this lady who's been shopping with a bit of ultramarine blue, which is a darker and a warmer blue, as it turns out. And I'm not trying for detail. You can see. Use big brushes, you know. Don't go in niggling little brushes for this. You're learning how to play with carrots. Whoops, she's just suddenly got a bigger bag. That doesn't matter. We'll settle for that. And again, don't overdo it. Give the paint a chance to do its job and dry. There's his Peaky Blinder flat cap. You see, just by a couple of strokes, you can make it look as though he's got a hand open and he's wearing a jacket. And these all started as carrots, you saw it. Yeah. And his mate needs a bit of cobalt blue as well. Sorry, ultramarine blue. And his hand's outstretched. You don't have to use watercolour paints either, you know, to draw carrots. You can use whatever you want. I use oil crayons quite a bit at the moment because it stops you getting too niggly, but you can use anything. Coloured pencils, anything you fancy. Do a background. Decide on a scene. Okay, I've used two blues at the moment, and I'm going to add a bit of light red to the ultramarine, which makes a purpley blue. And this figure is closest to us, so this figure is getting a darker treatment. I need a bit more light red because I'm not happy with that. I don't think they've been to the same shops, but their bags look similar size. I don't know why. This is where my test is. Can I draw a walking stick thin? Yeah, of course I can. So there you go. Simply just 3 colours onto a background and you've got a picture now. And you see your background is almost irrelevant. It's sunk into the background, the figures are to the foreground. We're not quite finished yet. But we will be soon, because there's another wrinkle that I want to show you which will really lift your finished painting. But we'll do that in a second. Right, now to just finish our picture off, it'll give it a lift, hopefully. We'll put some shadows in. Now shadows, for me, they're dead easy to do. So don't be frightened of it. What you've got to think about is where's the light source coming from. And the light source can come from anywhere you want. But for this picture, I'm going to decide there's a nice bit of lightness there. So the sun could be shining through the bit of cloudiness from there. And what happens is, I line up with a ruler to the base of the figure and just lightly draw a line from that light source area from the feet of the figures. And like everything that I do, it's not meant to be precise. Then that's a failing of mine. I better do the walking stick shadow, and this guy out here, he's going to have just a little bit of a shadow. That's the last shadow line in place. So now I can proceed to paint shadows in. And you notice, same colours, ultramarine blue, a bit of light red, gives you this sort of a purplish colour. And I'm going to have a reasonable amount of paint ready, just mixing up a nice mix of paint. So hopefully all the shadows I can do with one little lot of paint. So here we go. What the shadow does, helps to take your eye into the picture, and you don't try to be too clever. And too accurate. What you're doing is giving a hint. There's something that's going on here. And I've done this pretty well, because a lot of the details wouldn't come into these shadows anyway. There we go, I'm happy with that. Oh, and just by the way, just occurred to me, you probably have no idea what the Gleaners is. Well, the Gleaners is my local pub. So once you've mastered or become confident in developing figures from drawing carrots, the world's your oyster. Because I use sketchbooks and I sketch people all the time, and you get a feeling for how they're shaped, and then you can go on to produce pictures of other carrot figures, but then detailed. And so I have a few to show you. You can have a look at some other ways and some other materials that I use in order to produce figures which originally had their lives as carrots. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward perhaps to seeing you next time. Bye for now.